Love Bay family, and welcome back to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. I'm your host, Felicia Fishoff, registered psychotherapist and founder of Rooted in Resilience Psychotherapy and Wellness. And tonight, we are stepping into another powerful segment of the Insight Hour. Tonight's conversation is one that I believe is deeply needed, not only within our communities, but across generations. We're exploring the topic emotional safety for men. When does it begin? Many men were never taught how to feel, only how to function. From a young age, boys often receive messages like, be a man, toughen up, or don't cry, reinforcing the idea that emotional expression is something to suppress rather than something to understand. But what happens when emotional safety is missing from the very beginning? Joining me tonight is counselor Nigel Buckner, who brings both professional insight and lived power into this conversation. Nigel is an associate mental health therapist and practicum program manager at Soul Care Christian Counseling and also serves at the Family Center of Northern Alberta. He provides individual and group therapy, leads workshops, and mentors future therapists across Canada. He is also the author of It's Okay to Feel, a children's book encouraging emotional connection between Black fathers and sons. Nigel is deeply passionate about social justice and supporting Black individuals in exploring their lived experiences, creating safe and affirming spaces for healing and growth. Together, we'll explore how family dynamics, cultural expectations, and generational trauma shape how boys learn to express or silence their emotions, and how those patterns can follow them into adulthood, relationships, and identity. Before we continue, just a gentle reminder that this show is for education and informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for professional mental health care. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional for support. And tonight, I want to invite our community into this conversation. Invite your brothers, your uncles, your partner, your sons, your nephews. This is not just a conversation for men, but for all of us who love them, raise them, and walk alongside them. So, guess what, Love Bay family? The chat is open. We want to hear from you. And because emotional safety doesn't just impact individuals, it shapes families, relationships, and entire communities. So, we want you to be here with us, stay with us, because guess what? We're just getting started. Nigel, welcome, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, Felicia. How are you
Oh
doing
my
today?
God.
How's your day going?
I'm doing all right. It's March break,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the boys are keeping me on my toes.
yeah.
But it's been a
I
good
know
week
what
so
that's like.
far.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's good.
yes.
That is good. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. I
wonderful.
have been beaming all week, Nigel. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be such a good conversation
Yeah, it's
because
gonna be great. Yeah.
right? We need to be talking about this because I feel like we don't talk about it enough, right?
Hmm.
So I love to start off these episodes by asking, why does our community need to be talking about this topic tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why we need to be talking about this topic, and particularly
Mm,
of emotional safety, is because emotional safety is important to the overall well-being of any person, but more
mm,
particularly our Black boys. When we think
yes,
about our Black boys in society, they are often stigmatized, whether it's in the education system or in societal systems and institutions.
100%.
So it's very important that we have these kind of conversations because in a nutshell, they shape our reality. Essentially, our
Yes.
Black boys, they go on to be fathers, they go on to be uncles, they go on to be friends and citizens in the community, and they contribute to society. So if we are raising
100.
a generation of bad boys and men
Yes.
who are not in alignment or in tune with their own emotions, it does leak
Mm,
somewhere. It does spill over somewhere, and that somewhere
yes.
often is within the family dynamic. And family is
Absolutely.
one of the first institutions that was
Yes.
created. So it's important that we have this conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Boy, you're already dropping all, I always say it, Love Bay family, you're dropping all the dumpling one time.
Definitely.
Okay. I love it. I love it that we're
Hmm.
starting
Hmm.
off like this so powerfully off the bat, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for those that are listening tonight that
Hmm.
doesn't understand what emotional safety means, can you even
Yeah.
just begin
Yeah.
by starting us there? Like, what does it mean to be emotionally safe?
Yeah, absolutely. So, emotional safety is the experience of being able to express your thoughts, your feelings, your
Mm,
vulnerabilities without any fear of judgment or rejection, ridicule, or
mm,
punishment, while
yes.
trusting that you will be met with both respect, care, and consistency. So, if we
Mm,
were to summarize all of that, emotional safety is knowing that you can be fully human
yes.
without it being held against you, essentially.
Woo! You could be
Yeah,
fully
yeah.
human. I love
Hmm.
that. I love that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I'm glad
yeah.
that you pinpointed respect because I know
Hmm.
based on our barbershop Tuesdays, respect has come
Hmm.
up quite a bit and how
Hmm.
important
Hmm.
that is for men and even from boyhood, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, and so, when it comes to creating safe space where boys
Hmm.
can feel safe enough to open up and to, really express how they're feeling, how can we begin to create these safe spaces for them, and what are some of the barriers that they experience?
Yeah. So we'll start off in terms of barriers. So some of the barriers that they're often experiencing is language. So one of the things that I've come
Mm,
to understand, and even in my professional and personal life experience, is the aspect that emotional literacy isn't common, so to say.
mm,
We can't
mm,
assume that someone has the emotional literacy in terms
mm,
of being able to identify their emotions. So if
mm,
that isn't taught, if that
mhm.
isn't modeled, we can't expect a 16-year-old boy to know how he's feeling if the 5-year-old in him wasn't, if that wasn't taught for him, if that wasn't modeled, if
Yes.
that wasn't
Mhm,
encouraged or promoted, right? So I think that's
mhm,
number one. That's one of the barriers in terms of language. The second barrier, I
mhm.
think, is the aspect of institutions. So when we look at the aspect of education and schools,
Yes.
how are schools promoting that aspect of emotional expression? So if
Yes.
a kid or a teenager gets in trouble, so to say, is there room for them to express their
Yes.
frustration? Do they
Mhm.
have the opportunity to share their side of the story and what happened? Oftentimes that isn't the case. So I'll use
Yes.
myself as an example. I remember frequently as a little kid in elementary
Mhm.
school, forever getting in trouble for talking. So to say, I was the
Mhm.
talker,
Mhm. Mhm.
and for whatever reason I couldn't, the teacher wouldn't allow my side of the story to be heard. I didn't have that opportunity. Luckily
Mm.
enough, I did have a mother who advocated for me. So when I came home
Yes,
from school,
mama.
that's right. So when I came home from school,
Yes.
how was school? And I would always share with her what happened. Best believe my mom was at school the next day. We're having a
Mhm.
conversation. What was going on? Right. So there is that
Absolutely.
aspect of the school institution, but also piggybacking with advocacy. Is the
Yes.
generation previous to us, are the people in authority advocating for these young boys, for children to express their self, to
Wow.
share how they are feeling? So I think those are a
Yes.
couple of barriers there. The
Wow.
earlier part of your question, I believe you asked, was the aspect of what spaces can be created, if I heard
Yes,
you
yes.
correctly.
You got
Yeah.
it. You got it.
Yeah. So when we think about spaces being created, I think the first space starts at home. I think that's number one. Before we can have any
Mm,
expectations at school or after school programs or anything like that, it
mhm.
first starts at home. What are we modeling at home? What is the language being used at home?
Mhm.
What is the precedent that's being set at home? Because one of the things, I
Mhm.
think it was even just this past week, I was thinking about it, and one of the thoughts I was having is that how can we expect our teenagers to be aware of how they are feeling when we didn't model that for them as kids, when we didn't
Yeah.
give them that space for
Yeah.
them to express? And I think a part of that aspect is,
Mhm.
especially coming from a Caribbean household, that
Mhm.
emotional expression that isn't a norm, right?
Mhm.
So you crying, you being upset. What did I give you something to cry for?
Oh,
You know what I
right?
mean?
Yeah.
Right? All those messages but that
Yeah.
communicated something to us,
Of
right? That
course.
taught
Of
us that
course.
emotional expression isn't safe here. Or if I do express, it's going to be met with some sort of punishment. It's going to be met with some sort of
Mhm.
discipline. So
Mhm.
subconsciously, it's that aspect. What hasn't been modeled and what has been modeled, something's been communicated. So whether we're
Mhm.
doing something about it, whether we're not doing something, something is always being communicated. I think that's what we have to lean into and understand, that
Yes.
within the home, we're always communicating something. Whether we're aware of it or not, our
Yes.
children, our child, our children, they're paying attention. They are definitely aware.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
And I think that sometimes we don't realize that at home we're actually modeling um, how so our children can actually begin to interact in the world around them, so whether
Yeah.
it's at school
Hmm.
or later on in their career, in their
Hmm.
relationships, right? And I know that it's hard because obviously I know we talk about respect for men, but for
Hmm.
Caribbean people in general,
Yeah, yeah.
respect is huge when it
Hmm.
comes to certain dynamics, especially within the home,
Right.
right? But
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes we see emotion as threat,
Yeah.
right? But when really it is just an avenue of processing,
Hmm. Hmm.
processing whatever it is, right?
Right.
It's actually a natural response
Absolutely.
to processing whatever we're going through.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and absolutely. So, like, even
Hmm.
speaking to that aspect of like it being a
Hmm.
response, it being something that we are processing, that is something that needs to
Yes.
be modeled, right? Because if we when we think
Yes.
about it from the aspect of home, a lot of the things that we see and what's been modeled, I would even say comes from like a solution focused lens, in terms of we don't get to
Mm,
see the problem, so to say. We don't get to see or know
mhm.
what mom and dad are navigating. We're just seeing the solution. We're just seeing things always
Yes.
working out. So that aspect of processing,
Mhm,
processing this
mhm.
difficult moment, processing when I feel stuck or I'm not sure what to do, we don't get to see that. So because we don't get to see
Yeah,
that, our kids also don't get to model that, right? So if it's
yeah,
not being modeled at home, the first time they're really going to experience that processing or being put in a situation to process is at school. And if they don't have the school,
100%.
if they don't have the skills to process at school, that's when those labels come in. That's when maybe your child needs to be assessed and all those different things, just because that skill
Mhm,
set hasn't been there. And again, under the umbrella of
mhm.
Caribbean household, it is that
Yeah,
reframing. We have to learn as parents to let our children see us struggle. Let our children see
yeah.
us be stuck. That vulnerability,
Woo.
that aspect of
Mhm.
vulnerability, that has to be modeled. We have to let our children know that we
Yeah,
aren't perfect. We make mistakes. We didn't always get it
yeah,
right. But if we are creating an image and modeling this aspect of perfection, that means there's no room for our emotions. That means there's no room for when I'm feeling this hard emotion, what do I do with it? I have to suppress it. I have to put it away. I have to hide.
100%.
I have to hide it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%. There's two different things that are kind of dancing around in my mind.
Yeah.
On one hand, I'm really thinking about the fact that many of us didn't have it modeled ourselves. And
Hmm.
so,
Hmm.
even becoming parents is like a refiner's fire where we're really
Yeah.
trying to figure it out ourselves because these are generational patterns.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to even take that a step further,
Hmm.
I'm thinking about how, you know, expressing things like emotion and
Yeah.
being vocal. Those things were dangerous back in the day,
Yep.
right? When
Mhm.
we think about things like slavery, when we think about
Yeah.
situations where people
Mhm.
were getting lynched and
Mhm.
killed, and
Mhm.
like to speak up
Yeah.
was actually dangerous,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And I wonder how much of this generationally is so ingrained in us that we've actually seen speaking up, sharing our emotions as a threat.
Yeah, yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I do think that is something that
Yeah,
has been passed down through us from generation to generation. I think it's subconscious. So I think it's the aspect
100.
that it's something that just inherently lives in our body being passed down. And then it's the
Yeah,
other side where we don't take the time to question why we do the things that we do, essentially. Right, we don't take
absolutely.
the time to do that. So to
Absolutely.
your point where our generation of parents are
Yeah.
really in that refiner fire where the things that
Yeah.
our kids are
Yeah.
doing, we would have got licks for, we would have been disciplined
Yeah.
for. We're now giving them the
Yeah.
room to express themselves because we understand that they're 5, they're
Yes.
6, they're 10, they're
Yeah.
learning the skills. And I think that boils down to that aspect
Yes.
of unrealistic expectations that sometimes
Absolutely.
as kids we have these expectations that we are to be seen and not heard, that we are to
Yeah, the
feel
things.
right, we're to feel our emotions but we can't express our emotions, and then if
Yes.
it shows up on our face, fix your face, and all of those
I
terminologies,
remember that.
right?
Felicia, fix your face.
Yeah, yeah, fix your face. What did I give you something to be upset about? You know what I mean? All of those
Yeah.
terminologies, all of those
Yes.
languages, they formed us, they shaped us, right? So when we talk
Yes.
about this now, that is the emotional literacy now, right? Because when
Absolutely.
we really lock in and clock it, that's the emotional literacy that was communicated to us.
Yes.
Fix your face. Did I give you something to cry for? Why are you crying? All of
Yes.
those languages, that's what stuck with us. So now when we grow
100%.
up and we're teenagers and young adults and adults and we feel these difficult emotions and it shows up on
Yeah.
our face, when somebody asks us what's wrong, our response is I'm fine. Because then
Yes.
that processing skill, that ability to process has been missing, right? So it's
Absolutely.
absolutely so vital, so vital that
100%.
we grow in that awareness and allow ourselves to redefine what it means
Mm,
to feel. Because for us,
yeah.
it is that uncomfortable moment and feeling of, wow, I'm allowing my kid to express themselves for something that I would have been disciplined for, right?
Absolutely.
And I see that even with my own kid. My kid is
Yeah.
5, and the things that and it's that experience of when they're outside, they're this angel. Everybody says they're great and wonderful, but at home,
Mm,
this is
mm,
where that training comes, right? So he gets to express himself
absolutely.
and do all the
Yeah.
things. If I told people the stories that my son does at home, they would not believe it because when he's on road, he don't act like that. He is
Mm-mm.
this wonderful, regulated child, and I give God thanks for that.
Yes.
But he's
Yes.
able to display that because at home he's able to express his emotions.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
You are listening to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Please
Mhm.
like, share, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to download the Love Bay Radio app on Apple and Google Play. Visit lovebayradio.live to support the station. Your donations help us continue serving you and our community. You can reach out to us at 437-778-3299. We are here serving you 24/7. Again, the chat is open. Let's hear from you. And we have some comments in the chat.
Yeah.
Uh, so right now we have some messages from Convos with Carrie 2025. Thank you for dropping in. So she says, facts. I totally believe in giving children room. I just think society has gone a bit left with it, with
Mhm.
giving the freedom without guidance and keeping what worked as well from the past. Did you want to speak to
Yeah.
that, Nigel?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
Yes.
that is
Great
that is so
comment.
real because it is that
Mm-hmm.
duality. And what I'm learning
Yes.
in my personal life and also professional life is that we are living in duality more often than we think. right? So it is
Yeah.
that aspect. And I've sat with that and said,
Yeah.
wow, my son is doing things that I would have gotten disciplined for. And the aspect of like, am I really gonna let my son grow up and not even get half the discipline that I got from my parents? But then when I
Yes.
sit with that, I think about the long term and I think about, well, how did that impact me? And I think that's where we're starting. We have to look at the impact.
We
What
have
is the
to.
impact of us disciplining our kids or giving them a fraction of what we experience? How is that going to impact
100%.
them?
Can I
Right?
give you a
How is
little
that going
comedy
to,
break? I'm
yeah,
going to
of
give you a little
course.
comedy break because this week I was
Hmm.
thinking about this very thing, right? And I said, these kids don't really know what it was like to grow up
Don't
in a
know.
Caribbean household. So I said, okay. So I send my youngest upstairs. I said, Siki, go to the bathroom and go get me the thing. And
Hmm.
so then he's like, "What thing?" I said, "Go get me
Yeah,
the thing." So he's
yeah,
there. He's
yeah.
trying to figure out what I'm talking about. So
Hmm.
he came
Hmm.
back down.
Hmm.
First, he brought me some
Yeah.
toothpaste. I said, "No, if you don't get me the thing, I'm gonna beat you." So he went
Right, right. Yeah,
upstairs,
yeah.
and then he's
Hmm.
like trying to figure, and he's laughing as he's coming down. And I said, "Yeah, this is what it
Yeah,
was like
this is
when I
what it
was
was
growing
like.
up." Okay, you had
Hmm.
to figure
This
out
is
what the thing was.
exactly, exactly. But and it is that aspect of what was modeled to us, what we
100.
experienced as kids growing up, right? So we do have that opportunity to hold both worlds in our hand, and that's the duality.
100.
We're
100.
holding our lived experiences and we're holding the experience we want to have for our kid or for our children. And it
Yes,
is that aspect of trying to merge it. There are things that our
100%.
parents did with us that were necessary, that were
Yes,
vital,
yes,
and helped shape
absolutely.
us be the person that we are. But there are
100.
other things that were left field and were wild, and we are not going to allow
Yeah,
our kids to experience that. So it is that
yeah,
merging, right?
yes,
So if
yes.
the most basic thing, we couldn't call our parents by their first name. That wasn't a thing. But my son stays calling me by my first name.
Hey!
But I also understand for me it doesn't bother me, right?
Yes,
And that's
mhm,
the thing is just what works for me and what works for our household. There we got to
yeah,
find that balance, right? So there are
absolutely,
values that our parents instilled in us that are necessary for
absolutely,
when it comes to raising kids. But there are
absolutely,
other things that we are molding and shaping and finding what works in this day and age. And
absolutely.
and even with that, I think it's also understanding that our kids are human, right? Our boys are human. They have their
Yeah,
own characteristic traits. They
yeah,
have their own personality, their own temperament. We got to learn them. We got to learn our
100%,
kids. We have to know what
100%.
works for them when it comes to discipline. So
Mhm,
for my kid, yeah, the spanking, the hitting, it doesn't work for him because of his
mhm.
temperament.
Yeah,
Talking hard to him, talking rough to him doesn't work for his temperament. He is
yeah,
emotionally in tune with himself. So
yes,
any sort of hard talking, he feels it instantly.
yeah,
So we have the approach of it's more conversation based. I
yeah,
need to understand why you did what
yeah,
you did so I can correct that. Disciplining you, beating
100%.
you, spanking you, that's not going to help me understand. That's just me
100
releasing frustration. Yeah,
100%,
yeah,
100%,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And really being able to teach them, that we can regulate our own emotions as parents as
Yeah.
well is also probably the one of the biggest lessons that they can learn
Hmm.
because it could be like
Hmm.
one, okay, mom and dad is upset, right?
Yep.
Um, but the way that they're handling it is different.
That's it.
They're
That's it.
choosing to move
Yeah.
differently. Right, and,
Yeah.
this is not about, like, shame, and there's not about, like,
Mhm.
doing things in one way because we get it. It's hard to kinda navigate parenthood, and
Mhm.
again, like you said, Nigel, like, every child has their own temperament and their
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
personality and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But, when we're talking about emotional safety, when we're talking about, emotional, like, literacy, we also have
Mhm.
to learn that literacy for ourselves as well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, Carrie, absolutely. Yes, I think it is easier said than done with adults who are struggling with themselves and their trauma.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and
Mhm.
yes, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
why I strongly believe, and you can speak to this too, Nigel, that we have to
Mhm.
live by example. We have to work through our
Yeah.
own trauma. It's our responsibility. It's not our
Yeah.
kids' responsibility to deal with that. It's our own
Yeah.
responsibility, and we have to get on this journey for ourselves to show them that it's
Yeah.
possible. Because if
Yeah.
not, we just pass it on to the next generation anyway,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I agree with that. How we
Yeah.
navigate and choose to navigate through our trauma and our lived experience, it is our responsibility. We cannot
Yeah.
pawn that off to our kids or anyone else. We do have to be responsible with that. But we also have to understand that there is support out there, that there are
Yeah.
resources out there. And I think even one of the things that you said in terms of
Mm.
that emotional regulation, in terms of being aware, I think one of the greatest tools that I've been able to use for myself, but also for clients, is a feelings wheel. Being able to
Yes, I
just
love the
pull,
feelings
yeah,
wheel. Yes.
yeah, just being able to have that accessible and pull that out so that they can become aware of what they're feeling and being able to identify it. So I think that's where it starts. And even with that aspect of, healing your trauma and your lived experience, there are ways where you can bring your child along with you on that journey in terms of the utilization of tools.
Yes. Top the
Right, so
thing.
yeah, so making it a game out of it in terms of, like, pulling out that feelings wheel. What am I feeling what not right now, and what
Yeah.
word best describes that? Is it always going to be accurate or correct? No, but that's the whole point of
Yeah.
being able to express yourself. It doesn't have to be correct, it doesn't have to be accurate. It just has
Yes.
to have meaning for you. This is what I'm feeling in the moment. And
Yes.
sometimes our feelings may not fit the event or the situation at hand. We can work with that later. The first step really is just identifying, this is what I'm feeling. This is how this
Yes.
situation made me feel. And we just bring our kids along
Yes.
that journey, giving them that skill set as we're learning it ourselves. Yeah.
100%. And I love that
Hmm.
you said that because, again, our cultures are so collectivist. We
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
heal in the collective.
Hmm.
And I feel
Hmm.
like sometimes when we're working through our traumatic experiences, we think about it from an individual lens, right?
Right.
But I love
Yeah.
that you pull that in. Like we can still heal as a family, right?
Yes.
And as we're learning the language, we can bring our family along with us for that ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that
Mhm.
aspect that we're leading the ride, we're leading the journey, right? So where we are in our lived experience of healing, all we're doing is creating a lane for our kids to walk in, to run in, to jog in, however they want to utilize that lane, so that when they cross the roadblocks that we've navigated through, they have the skills.
Mhm.
So where
Mhm.
we may have tripped up, they're able to run, walk, and have a smoother path because we
Yes,
did that work, right? So
100%.
imagine, right, imagine the skills our kids are having at their age if we had at our
Mhm.
age. Where would we be emotionally?
Yes.
How would that have impacted us in our education and academic journey, in our
Mhm.
societal and social life? How would we have navigated those spaces differently if we had the skills that our kids are now having the opportunity to get now? And that's the
Yes.
point. It's
Yeah.
being a parent is so difficult because there's that aspect of, we are digging, essentially. We are creating a path for our kids
Mhm.
to walk on, and it's
Yeah.
going to be very uncomfortable and
Mhm.
muddy and gritty for us because we're doing this deep work just so that our kids and the kids after them and generations after them can walk a bit smoother. And that's the
Yes.
hope, that they get
Yes.
to walk where we had to crawl, where we had to dig. They can now walk
Yes.
and take in the scenery and look and be able to have experiences and be in spaces that we may not have had the opportunity to be in, simply because we did that emotional work.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
100%. I love this
Mhm.
conversation so much. I know that in the beginning you mentioned the
Mhm.
stigmas that
Yeah, yeah.
that boys and men face, especially
Mhm.
as it relates to their emotions. Can
Mhm.
you speak a little bit to that? Like, what are some of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
stigmas that you've come across? And maybe we
Mhm.
could take it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course there's
Mhm.
again that emotional language. So there's things such as, like, don't cry, man up, be strong. Those statements have
Mhm.
shaped our emotional literacy, emotional
Yeah.
expression, and it's essentially
Mhm.
put us in a box. Essentially, it's put us in a box where it's told us that we have to be silent.
Mm.
When what I've done with a lot of my clients, especially like male clients, in terms of exploring their relationship with words, exploring their relationship
Mm.
with phrases, because once we explore those relationships and begin to understand how some simple statements, words, the impact it's had, we can then start
Yes.
to unpack and explore, well, what did you need in that moment, and start to
Mm.
reframe it and give
Yes.
ourselves what we need, right? So
Yes.
it's understanding like these statements, these words, they take
Hmm.
deep root in us from childhood, teenagehood, and
Yes.
they stick with us. So
Can you give us
now,
some
yeah,
examples? Like, what are some
yeah,
common ones that you come across when you in your work with men, or even that you've
yeah.
experienced yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it was
Hmm.
that aspect of man up. That was the biggest one that I experienced in my own personal
Yes.
life. So, as a
Hmm.
teenager, I did sports, ran track, and I did soccer and things like that. So that aspect of having to be strong, having to man up, it meant that there was no room for me to make mistakes, and there was no room for me to check in with myself emotionally. So in my personal life presently right
Hmm.
now, I'm navigating and working through the aspect of how being an athlete has actually shaped my thought process.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yes.
so right now with that, it's the aspect of, because I played soccer. So in
Hmm.
me playing soccer, there's that aspect of I always have to respond. So if we make a mistake, there's no
Hmm.
pausing, wallowing, oh my gosh, this happened, da da da. I have to respond. I have to make a
Mm.
tackle. I have to sprint back, whatever the case may be, I have to
Yeah.
respond. So
Yes.
now I've been out of the game. I haven't played soccer in almost over 10 years now, but I'm married with a
Hmm.
child.
Yeah.
That emotional aspect is something I now
Yeah.
have to work through, because when something big happens or we're navigating something within the marriage or family, there is
Yeah.
just me responding. That
Hmm.
emotional aspect, I don't I was at a point where I was telling my wife, I
Yeah.
don't got time for that. I can't sit in the emotional aspect of it. I need a plan. I need to
Mm.
respond to this. Once we respond and we're
Mm.
good, then we can talk about it. Simple as with soccer as well. Once the game's
Yeah.
done and we won or we lost or whatever the case, then we can debrief. But when we're
Yeah.
in the middle of it, there's no emotional connection, talking, all that. I'm my head is down. I need to respond. I need to get out
Yes.
the gutter. We need some sort of room to breathe, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the things. So there's that aspect of these statements. It blocks that emotional connection for a lot of young
Yes.
boys, being that
Yes.
emotional connected to themselves. So now when they're
Yes.
adults, when they're married or in high corporate jobs, whatever the case may be, that emotional aspect, it's so
Yes.
distant from them. So when they're now
Yeah.
put in positions where they need to draw on that, when they need to connect to that, it's so
Mm.
foreign. They don't know what to do. And for some of them, that's where other
Yes.
things come up, where like stress and panic and all
Yes.
these different things, because they don't have
Yes.
the skills to manage. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Good
Hmm.
evening, Miss J. Welcome to the chat. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Miss J, she has her wonderful, wonderful show. She's also one of our hosts. Welcome,
Wonderful.
welcome, Miss
Welcome.
J. She does the Business Weekly here on Love Bay, and she is
Okay.
phenomenal. So
Wonderful.
check her out if you have
Hmm.
not done so on
Hmm.
Thursdays. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm so glad that you talked about that, Nigel, right? Because
Hmm.
I think that it's so important. It's so important
Yeah.
to kind of, go through these narratives and
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
see, like, okay, so how has these certain stigmas really impacted the way that I think, the way that I respond to certain things, the way that I see
Yeah.
myself, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like it is, and this impacts everything because it, like I was thinking, even in the school system, like we were mentioning earlier,
Hmm.
even in like, work settings when we have to learn to self advocate for us, especially in these systems, we have to know how to
Yeah.
advocate for ourselves in these
Hmm.
systems.
Hmm.
But if we're still being held back by certain things, and
Yeah.
we don't have that emotional literacy, it does have
Hmm.
an impact.
Right, right, absolutely. And this is
Mhm.
why being in certain spaces or connected to certain individuals is so important,
Mhm.
right? So, as I shared earlier, like my mom was one of my advocacies, so a person that
Yes.
advocated for me. But it's also the
Yes.
aspect of, okay, certain individuals don't have a parent in their household that can advocate for them due to other
Yeah.
commitments and things like along those lines. Where does that advocacy come from? That's why guidance
Mm,
counselors are important. That's where programs such as Big Brother, Big Sister are important. Or if you grew
mm,
up in a church community, having an older young adult or youth that can
yes.
mentor you. Being
Yes.
in community is one of the essential things so that that emotional expression skill can be developed. It's
Yes.
vitally important for that to happen in order
Yes.
for us to challenge these stigmas. In order for us to
Yes.
challenge the stigmas that are taking place in these institutions, we need people in these institutions that are advocating. We need people
Yes.
in these positions of authority that can speak to the lived experiences of the Black community. That is what we need,
Absolutely.
and it's
Yes.
happening, and that is the
Yes.
joy as well. That it is happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
advocacy is key, right?
It's so key. It's so key.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. And, I think that when we can learn to, and it's hard, I work with
Yeah.
clients through this, but when we
Hmm.
can learn to self advocate for ourselves, especially
Yeah.
as parents as well, we
Hmm.
also are
Hmm.
able to teach our kids how to do it when we're not around.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. Love Bay
It
family, I'm
is.
acknowledging it. It is hard. Oh, wait, Miss
Hmm.
J is in the
Hmm.
room. It is challenging. She's going to pull up my socks. It is challenging, right? It is
Yeah,
challenging.
yeah. It is, but it is that reality, right? It is challenging. It is hard because again, these are
Yes.
skills. These are things that we're having to do, and in order for all of that to happen, and you were getting to it in terms of just like being reflective. We have to confront ourselves. There
Yeah.
comes a point in time where, as a young boy, young Black boy, teenager, young adult, whatever the case may be, we have to confront ourselves and realize and come to terms that something has to change. And I
Yes.
think that's a part of it as well, that when it comes to the emotional expression, something has to change. When we reflect on our friendships, relationships, whatever the case may be, something has to change. We have to be willing to confront ourselves so that we can be the best version of ourselves, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Nigel, I
Mm,
know I'm a queen bee right now, right? But I want you to speak to the men right now because
mm,
for the men that are listening tonight, that they're
mhm.
like, okay, so I don't have the emotional literacy. I hear that, or
Yeah,
maybe I do,
yeah.
and I need to teach my kids, or whatever the situation may be. Where do they go
Mhm.
from here? So we're talking about where it starts, but where
Yeah.
do they go from here?
Yeah, there are a lot of places that men can go. I think it's again starts with community. So we're going to
Mm,
start there. Who are you connected to? Is there men
yes.
in your life that you are connected to, whether they are your peers, whether they are older than you? Are you connected to them? Are
Mm,
you being vulnerable with them? Are you sharing with them some of the things that you have been experiencing, some of the things that you are navigating through?
mm,
What are the relational dynamics? So we'll start there in terms of who are
mhm,
you connected to. The second area
mm.
that we can look at is the aspect of what are your struggles, right? So
Yes.
we have to confront. It starts there. So after you build a community, you also have to confront yourself within the safety of that community. So what
Mm,
are the things that you're struggling with? What are the things that you want to change? And we start making small changes one by one. One of the things that I do with
mm,
clients when it comes to that aspect of reclaiming self, reclaiming identity,
mm.
and advocacy, I always tell them before we can do it outside, we have to do it inside. So, what does that look like for you practically? What is one thing that you can commit to doing between now and our next session that represents
Mhm.
that internal advocacy for you, that it
Yes.
represents you reclaiming self? So, what is the
Woo!
small changes that you can make?
Yes.
Is it the aspect of having that feelings wheel readily available? Or is it the aspect that I'm going to start practicing taking a deep breath before I respond to my kid? Whatever that may be,
Mm.
start. Start. I'm not going to tell you to go to therapy if you're not ready for therapy. I'm not going to tell you that. But there are practical things that you can do that can create a space where it's safe for you to be vulnerable, but also for your son to be vulnerable with you, or for other men
Mm,
around you to be vulnerable with you. So I think it starts there.
mm,
I think it starts with that aspect of community, and I think it also starts with the aspect of confronting self. And
yes.
then it's that aspect of building that emotional literacy.
Mm,
Taking the time to build your emotional literacy is going to be important.
yes.
Saying you're angry, saying you're fine is not cutting it anymore. We are in 2026. It ain't
Mm-hmm,
cutting it
mm-hmm,
anymore.
mm-hmm,
We
mm-hmm.
have to expand our emotional literacy. We have to expand what it actually is that we are feeling. And is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to lie to you. This is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable because it's a new skill. It's
Yes.
uncomfortable is because we are being challenged to develop something that we haven't been challenged to develop something before. I'll
Yes.
use myself as an example. Coming home from
Yes.
school, my mom would ask me, "How was school?" I'm fine. It was fine. Got me out of everything. That's it. Didn't have to expand, didn't
Uh-huh.
have to give any more details. I'm fine. It was fine. Got me out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I got married, blew up my whole world. I'm fine. It was fine. Gets me nowhere now. I
Yeah.
have to dig deep. I have to say, well, this is what came up for me. This is how I'm feeling. Am I perfect with it? Absolutely not. Are there times where I slip
Absolutely.
into what is comfortable in terms of I'm fine, it was fine?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But it's understanding that I'm committed to growing. And that's what it
Mm-hmm.
is. What
Yep.
does commitment to growth look like for you?
Mm-hmm.
How can we stay
Mm-hmm.
committed to that? And that's where that community comes in. That's where it's finding that space, brotherhood, and things along those lines. That's where it's getting that
Yes.
emotional literacy. All of that. It's one. We put that in one big pot and we stir it around, and the change will come. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm so
Hmm.
glad that you
Hmm.
brought up relationships because
Yeah.
how can we create emotional safety for men in the home that are
Hmm.
learning how to
Yeah.
get this
Yeah.
emotional
Hmm.
literacy? Like, what can,
Yeah.
you know, women
Hmm.
do to help
Yeah.
out, you know?
Yeah, I hear. And we'll start by saying like we know this is a touchy subject in terms of how
Yes.
females contribute. We know that's a touchy subject, but here
Yes.
is the reality. It is the aspect of having a space that is soft and being able to know that them coming and expressing to you is not with the lens of being fixed. Right? I think it starts with them having the space to know that they can just be their authentic self. Can you hold their raw emotion?
Mm.
Because when you really get a man talking and they share, you'll be surprised at things that they are actually holding in the palm of their hand, the things that they
Yes.
are thinking about. But it's the aspect of, are you safe enough for me to let this go?
Mm.
Because that's the reality. And I think it's because of the societal standards and norms and the pressures that sometimes for men, what happens out there, we bring it home as well. So we have our armor on at home because of one experience.
Mm.
But when we did
Mhm.
share and you responded a certain way, it reaffirmed everything outside. So now it taught me that I now have to keep this armor on outside and inside. And sometimes that
Mhm.
is heavy. Sometimes that
Yes.
is weighty. So it is that
Yes.
aspect of, can I express without being ridiculed, without being demonized, without
Mm.
being punished? So it is that aspect for females as well, that
Yeah.
sometimes we got to hold our tongues. Sometimes we have to take a deep breath and just sit with the emotions that our partner, our husband, our whoever the case may be, is expressing to us, because it is going to
Mm.
be uncomfortable for you too. It is going to be that new skill, that
Absolutely.
new reality, that wow, he's sharing with me. I need to honor
Mhm.
that. So sometimes it's going to
Yeah.
be the aspect of honoring it before we challenge it, honoring it before
Yeah.
we offer any sort of correction, and just sitting in
Mhm.
what's being expressed so that he knows that, okay, I shared this. This is how she responded. She didn't challenge, she didn't ask questions or try to fix me or anything like that. She just listened. And I think
Mm.
that is where it can start. Yeah.
Yeah. What is
Hmm.
the impact of wearing that
Hmm.
armor all the time?
Oh man, wearing that armor, there's so much impact. There's stress. There is, it can turn into the most extreme things like heart disease and all of those different things. But I think the most biggest thing is that aspect of
Mm.
stress management. Just how are men managing their stress? what does that look like? Where do you get to take that armor off? If you can't
Mhm.
take it off outside and you cannot take it off at home, where are you taking off that
Mhm.
armor? And that's where
Mhm.
sometimes unhealthy addictions and coping strategies come in that
Mhm.
does not promote the overall wellness of the man. But it is
Mhm.
that question, where do I get to take off that armor? So to the men
Mhm.
that are listening, I pose that question to you. Where do you get to take off that armor? Where do you get to take off that helmet, that sword, that breastplate, the
Mm.
shield, all of these things that you're wearing to protect yourself outside? Where do you get to take it off? If you're not taking it off at home, where are you taking it off? So there's two parts. Where do you get to take it off?
Mhm.
And where are you taking it off? And that is where I
Mhm.
believe it's going to start. We have to come in and
Absolutely.
confront ourselves. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. You
Hmm.
are listening to the Mental Health Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, and download the Love Bay Radio app on Apple and Google Play. Visit lovebayradio.live to donate and support the community. Call us at 437-778-3299. We're here serving you 24/7. And the chat is open. We want to hear from you, Love
Hmm.
Bay family. You are welcome here. Amazing, amazing. So what?
Hmm.
So I know that you mentioned that you've invited listeners
Hmm.
to think about, okay, well, if you're not taking down the
Hmm.
armor
Yeah,
at home, where are you taking
yeah,
down the armor? And I
yeah,
know that when we don't feel emotionally safe, sometimes that these things can become maybe like addictions because we're trying to cope.
yeah.
We still have to cope
Right.
with it. It doesn't
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
disappear. Like,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
what are the impacts of not taking off the armor? Are there like physical things that we end up doing instead when we don't have a healthy outlet?
Yeah, absolutely. Drinking, the substance use, those are some of the things that I've seen men turn to. And I think one of the
Mm,
things that when it comes to that is there's a need, right?
yes.
So when we don't have the opportunity to take off that armor, that means we're suppressing a need that we have. And when we suppress that need, we go and try to
Mm.
alleviate that need and fulfill that need
Mm.
somewhere else while still keeping the armor on.
Yes.
That's where secrets come in. That's where
Ooh.
sneaking off or hiding or things along those
Yes.
lines and addictions come in that we're trying to hide simply because we're trying to sit in that duality again. I have to keep this armor on, but I still have this need. What do I do? How do I hold both of these? And that's when we merge them together. And sometimes it isn't that merging together isn't healthy. So I one of the things
100%.
I've yeah, one of the things I've had to support a lot of my male clients with is that
Mhm.
aspect of like pornography. That is something
Mhm.
that is a growing thing amongst men,
Mhm.
especially with
Mhm.
black men. And it's that
Yes.
aspect of okay, pornography is the symptom. What is the need? What is underneath there that we're needing? And
Mm.
it's that aspect of a lot of them, it's that aspect of rejection. My
Yes.
needs were rejected. I didn't have a space where I could again take off that armor. I didn't have a space
Mm.
where when I attempted to take off that armor, I was
Yes.
met with punishment or I was met with this statement or this phrase. So it would
Mhm.
taught me that I have to keep this armor on. And the
Yeah.
reality is, a lot of men don't want to be carrying this armor. A lot
Mhm.
of men want to take this armor off, but they
Yeah.
don't feel like they have a safe space where they can. And it's going to be
Mhm.
that partnership of them confronting and a safe space with their partner, friend, family, community being created so that this
Mhm.
armor can have a place to land, where this armor can have a place to sit. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, again, I have the two tracks in my mind.
yeah.
Yeah,
Talk to
I
me.
have
Yeah.
this, right? So there's one, on one sense, I want to talk about,
Hmm.
the shame that kind
Yeah.
of comes with that.
Yeah.
Um, and then on the other hand, I also want to talk about the anger and how that
Yeah.
seems like the most appropriate emotions that we allow men to express.
Hmm.
Um, and yet there's so many other emotions underneath the surface, even if
Yeah.
that primary emotion is anger. So
Right.
I don't know where you want to take it. You have
Yeah, I,
two
I got you.
balls. Take
Yeah, let's
take
go.
whichever.
So let's talk about it from where we started earlier, talking about that aspect of modeling, right? When we
Yes.
look at society, anger is what's modeled as acceptable.
Yes.
Shame is what is modeled as to be hidden. We don't talk
Mm.
about shame in that aspect, but we talk about anger
Okay, okay,
very
you
much.
have to say that again because if people were trying to write that down,
Gotcha,
they
gotcha.
missed
Yeah,
it because that
no
was
worries.
hot. That was hot
All
off the
right.
press. Go ahead.
Let's talk about it from the aspect of modeling. So,
Yes.
societal wise, in society, anger is what is modeled as acceptable.
Yeah.
Shame is modeled to be hidden,
Mm.
right? So, when we look at it from that aspect, when we talk about anger, well, if
Yeah.
this is what's modeled to me in terms of music, in terms of TV
Mm-hmm.
shows, in
Mm-hmm.
movies, at
Mm-hmm.
home, from uncle, and all of that,
Yeah.
then that communicates to me that this is acceptable, but it's
Yes.
acceptable up until a certain point, right? So
Mm-hmm.
up until a certain point, this anger is acceptable, and then that expectation is, well, you can't be angry in this space.
Yes.
What is a young person to do when all that they've been taught was how to be angry? If all was acceptable for them was to be angry, that means there's more emotions that they need to understand and express and put in their literacy bag to communicate, but that's going to take time, right? So that anger that's been there,
Mm.
it's sitting with them for such a long time because that's what was modeled to them and expected. So this is where it starts from
Yes.
that little 5 year old, that 6 year old, that 7 year old. What
Mhm.
are we modeling to them outside of anger? So when they're expressing their anger, are we challenging that with them? Are we inviting them to think a bit more, or are we giving them more words to express what they're feeling? So yeah, you can be angry, but what's underneath that? Are you angry because you're sad? Are you angry because you are disappointed? Are
Yep.
you angry because something happened to you that you didn't like and there was some sort of injustice? What's underneath that?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
we've taught anger to be the end and be all emotion when anger is just a primary emotion. It's
That's
just a
right.
surface emotion.
That's
There are
right.
so many different things underneath that. And when we go underneath that, we will really see the vulnerable aspect of a man, of a boy, that they are dealing with some intense emotions, but what comes up is
100%.
anger because anger is what's accepted. So because
100.
that's what's accepted, I expressing anger means I'm accepted now. That belonging aspect is then present for them, and everybody
Yes.
wants to be along. Everybody wants to be in community,
Yes.
and then you get that stigma. You get that um, yeah, we'll use the word stigma, but in a more
Yeah.
positive way in terms of your name in the street is that, yeah, you don't want to get him annoyed. You don't want to anger him because he can really
Mhm.
do something about that. Right. So there's that anger
Mhm.
aspect.
Yes.
But then when we lean into the shame is
Yes.
the aspect of what's been modeled to be hidden. So
Mm.
this is where we be so surprised when our kids in their
Mhm.
adult years come and have conversations with parents and say, yeah, when I was a teenager, this is what I experienced, this is what I was navigating, or this happened to me when I was 7, and parents don't even remember that. And then there's that shock factor of like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were dealing with that. It's because shame was hiding it. The shame of
Mm.
having to hold this armor, the shame of having to cope the way that we do because it wasn't acceptable, but I also didn't have a space to share that. Right? So
Mm.
shame is that aspect of hiding ourselves from ourselves, hiding ourselves from
Yeah.
our needs, hiding ourselves from the support that we need. Because if we
Mhm.
express it, what does that say about me? Are you going to think differently about me? Are you going to judge me? Are you going to ridicule me? Are you going to
Mm.
punish me? And because we can't speak to the certainty of that, we
Yes.
know shame, we know hiding is certain, we know we have control over that. So I rather lean into the control of my shame, control of hiding this, than exposing it to someone where that support isn't guaranteed. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just dropping all the gems. You're
But
dropping
yeah,
all the gems.
the shame and the guilt
Mhm.
and the anger, it's all modeled to us. It is all being
100%.
modeled to us. Yeah, it's all being modeled. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yes. And so there's this need to flip the script,
Hmm.
right? Because
Absolutely.
right,
Hmm.
because even with anger, anger gets a
Yeah,
bad rap because anger
absolutely.
can't. You could be angry and be healthy in your anger, because some anger is
Hmm.
justified, right?
Right. Yeah,
But yet
absolutely.
it really has a bad rap, and
Hmm.
we expect anger to look like a particular thing, and especially like you were
Yeah.
mentioning for men, you know,
Hmm.
where we teach men that, okay, you need to be aggressive to get your
Mm,
point across, right?
yeah. Hmm.
And that is the only thing that is acceptable for you to do.
Right.
But men have a whole bunch of other emotions because they are still boys that grew up into men. And if we look
Exactly.
at our children, we look at our sons have so many emotions. Trust me, I know.
Hmm.
I have two of
Hmm.
them, and I'm like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah, 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 yeah.
there's a whole lot, and those just don't disappear, but
They
it
don't.
becomes hidden.
Yeah, it becomes hidden, and it
Mm,
becomes hidden because, and I don't know, maybe there needs to be research done on this, but I will go as far to say and go on a limb and say that shame is modeled and experienced before anger is. I will go so I remember
mm,
my son is 5, and I can recount
yeah.
moments where I know for sure he felt shame. I
Hmm.
know for sure he felt that. Of course, the
Yeah.
situations happened and it wasn't um, intentionally inflicted or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I can tell in his processing in
Yeah.
that moment, he
100.
felt that shame. And I
Yeah.
had to make sure I corrected it. And I think when I say that, I think this is the important point. What does repair look like? And I think that's a part
Yes.
of it as well. What does repair look like? So we grew
Yes.
up in a household where we're very good at disciplining, but that repair did not happen
Ooh.
intentionally or with vulnerability. Repair looked like come your dinner's on the table, come eat your food. Repair looked like are you okay? And if we say
Yes.
yes, no, or whatever the case may be, we are then left alone. What does repair look like? Because when we take the time to repair with our boys, we are teaching them vulnerability. We are giving them that aspect of communication and the emotional literacy. And we are giving them the space to also share what they're feeling and what came up for them. Repair is so important, and repair challenges that shame. Because
Mm,
when we're not offering repair, we're leaving our 5-year-old or 6-year-old to their own thoughts, to their
mm,
own devices. And if we continue that pattern when they're 16 and 17, yeah, it's going to be that much harder. Yeah, there's a reason why they aren't talking to you, because repair wasn't done when they were kids. Repair wasn't offered after the discipline, after the correction, however that may look like. There
mm.
must be repair after you discipline. I love you is still necessary. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Nigel, we're
Mm,
gonna have to do another show because I don't think the hour
absolutely.
was, and I'm gonna say
Yeah.
this on the air to hold me accountable. Love Bay family, you have to hold me accountable because I feel like
Yeah.
we've just literally began to scratch
Scratch
the
the
surface
surface.
on this
Yeah.
because it is so
Yeah.
deep, because this
Hmm.
whole piece about repair is so important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we begin to like move into healing if we don't understand the work of repair? And what does
Yeah.
the lack of repair do
Hmm.
to our bodies and our nervous system and how we
Oh
hold
man.
on to things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
we have this is a great question. What does repair look like? Oh,
Yeah. Repair. So I'll
mm-hmm.
use myself an example in my home. Repair starts with an apology. Repair starts with saying I am sorry if I'm in the wrong or whatever the case may be. That's where
Mm,
repair starts. Repair start also includes the aspect of after there's discipline, bringing them close, not pushing them away. So
yes.
one of the things for my son is that after repair happens, he's a feeler, he's a cuddler. So after repair happens, we cuddle all the time. We'll sit on the couch and have a nice little cuddle moment while we're watching whatever show that he's watching. Repair is me
Mm-hmm.
telling him that I love you, even though I'm upset, I still love you. Right. So those are some practical
Yes.
ways where repair, what repair can look like. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
Miss J, I agree. We have to do another show because this is just too
Yeah.
juicy.
Yeah.
This is too sweet. I am just
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
oh
Part
man,
two. Part two
we
on
have to,
repair.
you
Yeah.
know what? I have a few slots open in the fall. I'm gonna have to bring you back if you're free because
Yeah.
I think,
Let's do it.
yeah, let's do it. All right, we'll talk after the show because I think
Yeah.
that we need to do a part two to this because we
Hmm.
don't talk
Hmm.
about this enough, and
No, we don't. Yeah.
it's so important. I want you to do. a
Mhm.
shameless plug. I hope you brought your book because I make sure.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
if you want to go get it, go get it. I will
I
keep
have to find a
the love
copy.
baby.
Oh my gosh.
Where's
I'll have
your
to run
book?
upstairs.
Yeah, all
I
right,
can
go
grab
run
it.
upstairs. Go grab
Give
it.
me
Go
a
grab
minute.
it.
All right.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Love Bay family, I need some questions in the chat while Nigel goes to go get his book because I think it's important that, as a community, we're supporting each other. And I mean, Love Bay. This topic is so needed. It is so important. It is so refreshing. Yes, Miss J, I love that too, right? We got to support each other. um, we have to be talking about this because society has told us what has created a narrative about our men and our boys, and a part of reframing this narrative is by having these conversations, right? And then it's also the action that we follow it up with after, right? So I hope you're enjoying these topics, Love Bay, because this is for us, right? This is for you, this is for me, this is for our families, right? And in order for us to see change as a community, we have to be talking about these topics. Amazing. So, you know what? While Nigel is going to get his book, I did want to talk about next week's episode. So, next week, we're going to be diving into the conversation in honor of Women's International Month. Um, we are going to be talking about bring your whole self, but not that self, the workplace lie. That is coming up next week with the Real Talk panel. So I'm going to have Roxanne Francis, I'm going to have Natasha Pennycook, Charlene Lex, and Shanique Edwards join me for this amazing conversation again in honor of International Women's Month. Nigel, you're back. Please talk about
I
your
have
book.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
of
So I do
course.
have this book here called It Is Okay to Feel. I wrote this book in 2023. The purpose of
Yes.
me writing this book was to foster that vulnerability between emotional expression between fathers and sons. I found that it was a necessary
Mm,
need at that time, and it's still prevalent to this day. You can find this book on Amazon. All the proceeds are, I'm still donating them to other organizations and things like that. But this is
yes.
something that was dear to my heart. It's definitely a book that I would say is a testament to my father. I think I even dedicated a part of I dedicated the book to him because
Ooh.
I can honestly say that my dad was someone that always dared us to dream big, always dared us to do things, and he always
Yes.
always say, you could be an author, you can be this, you can be that. And so for me, this book was a real testament in terms of having this vision and just
Yes.
executing it. So yeah, you can find this book on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to give us a little
Mhm.
sound bite. You can give us a little sound bite, like
Absolutely.
a little sentence or two. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. No problem, no problem. So I'll start on the drive home. So I'll read from here. Michael's
Yes.
dad picked him up from school. Already aware of what happened, he asked Michael, "How was school today?" Michael's response was, "Fine, Dad." Michael's
Mm.
dad responded, saying, "Your teacher called me and told me what happened. Are you sure you are okay?" Michael said, "Yes, Dad, I'm fine." As they sat at the park eating their ice cream, Michael's dad said to him, "Son, it's okay to feel. It's okay to talk about what you are feeling on the inside. I'm here to help you." With tears in his eyes, Michael started to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you
Mhm.
talk because we got some extra time, and I know when we
Okay,
get
yeah.
this extra time, it's
Mhm,
because
mhm.
the topic is so sweet. Everyone in the
Yeah.
back is like, "Whoa, we can't cut it off yet." So I got the
Okay,
green.
yeah.
I got the green. We have a little bit more time. So
Let's
even
go.
this
Yeah.
soundbite, I
Mhm,
love how this
mhm.
models exactly what you were talking about earlier by
Yeah, yeah.
creating the space. I'm gonna just let you go with that because that was
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah. So again, in the story of this book, Michael experiences a form of racism at school, and it impacts him.
Mm,
And his teacher is the first one that noticed it, and teacher notified parents in terms of what had happened, and parents attempted to explore what happened, giving him the space to communicate. And of
Yes.
course, Michael, feeling that shame of what took place at school, was very reluctant. But
Yes.
eventually, in this comfort and safety of his father,
Mhm.
he was able to open up and share. Because some of the
Yes.
lessons that I wanted to intentionally put in there was the aspect of how important it is for teachers to be aware of what's happening at school. One of the things that
Mm.
I'm noticing is that administration is, and I want to be politically correct, but they're very good at touching but not holding a lot of intentional important issues. So they're very good at touching it, but they don't want to hold it. And highlighted in here how important it is for the teacher not only to touch the issue, but to hold it in her hand. Holding it in her hand
Yes.
was
Yes.
advocating and sharing it with the parent, not in a way that was
Yes.
demonizing or making or
Mm.
demonizing Michael, but sharing that this is an experience that he had, and I want to support you by letting you know about this. The
Mm.
teachers were the ones that let Michael's parents know, not Michael letting his parents know, and I think
Mhm.
that's important. The second
Yes.
aspect is that space where Michael's dad gave him the space to share. Was he reluctant? Absolutely. But it was important that Michael's father was still persistent. He was still persistent in creating that space, still persistent in asking him, are you
Yes.
okay? Are you sure? It is okay to question our kids on their emotional stability at that present time, or
Mm.
how they are feeling emotionally. The first answer is not always the right answer or the
Yeah.
truth, so to say.
Yes.
So we have to be persistent. And then, of course,
Yes.
Michael's father creating that space for him to share, and then Michael opening up. Michael can only do that because of what his father said. Fathers have to lead. They have to lead with curiosity. They have to lead with vulnerability, and that's the premise of the story. That's where it starts, and that's what takes place.
Woo. That was
Hmm.
amazing. That was beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you just speak this
Hmm.
because a part of creating that space was
Hmm.
co-regulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you speak to
Yeah.
that just quickly?
Absolutely. So while it's not in the book, we know that this is a lived experience and the reality that anybody that brings harm to our kid, we're blackface. It's on site. We know that.
Yo.
But that isn't what we can, right? So that isn't what we can model to our
Yeah.
children. So I have that conversation with my wife. I say, like, when our son is away, we have that conversation. I say,
Mhm.
listen, anybody talks to my son any certain way, does anything, it's on site. You don't trouble my kid. But that's not what we need to model. We have to lead with that vulnerability. We have to be emotionally regulated. So in the story, could Michael's father and parents be really upset about what took place and pull him out of school and
Absolutely.
make it? Absolutely,
I
and they're
mean,
within
yeah,
their
there's of
right.
course there's place for
They're
that. Yeah.
in, yeah, there's absolute place for that. But I think it's the
Mhm.
aspect of prioritizing what's important in this moment. The
Yes.
important thing is establishing emotional safety with Michael and checking in with him first, making
Yes.
sure that he's okay. Once that happens, then we can go through and have all the conversations that we need to have. But we
Mhm.
need to make sure that our son is safe first. We needed to make sure that Michael is
Yes.
safe first. So that emotional regulation aspect on the parents' part is necessary, because
Yeah.
if Michael shared with them and and his dad was irate and he was upset, he would have missed Michael and what he shared. And
Yeah.
sometimes that happens. Sometimes in our wanting to come to the rescue for our kids, come to the defense for our kids, we miss what they are sharing. Because sometimes coming to the rescue for them is simply just holding space. Because space wasn't held
Yeah.
at school, space is being held at home. So
Yeah.
sometimes we have to ask ourselves, is this response beneficial for my kid, or is this more
Mhm.
so beneficial for me?
100
Yeah.
because a big part of safety is being seen,
Mhm. Yeah. 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 And you
right?
can see that in the book. Michael's father gave him the space to be seen. Yeah. Mm.
Love Bay family, you can find this book on Amazon. I'm gonna have to order my copy. I haven't ordered my copy yet, but this
No worries.
tonight,
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to do this. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
wow,
Hmm.
what an episode. As we come
Absolutely.
to the end of tonight's Insight Hour on the Mental
Hmm.
Health Hour, I want to thank you, Nigel, for joining us and for sharing such thoughtful and necessary
Hmm.
insight on emotional
Hmm.
safety for men. Tonight's conversations reminds us that emotional safety doesn't
Hmm.
begin in adulthood, it begins in childhood.
Yeah. Hmm.
And in the
Hmm.
messages we receive, the spaces we are given, and the permission we are or are not
Hmm. Hmm.
granted to feel.
Yeah.
And if we want to raise emotionally healthy men, we must first create environments where boys are allowed to be fully human, where vulnerability is not seen as weakness, but as strength. Again, I want to thank everyone who joined the conversation with us tonight, whether you shared, reflected, or simply listened. Your presence matters.
Hmm.
And before we close, I just want to remind you again that next week is our Real Talk panel conversation in honor of International Women's Month, where we're going to be diving into the conversation. Bring your whole self, but not that self. The workplace lie. And this will be a real, candid, and yet a necessary discussion about what it truly means to show up authentically in the workplace and the unspoken rules that often tell us which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which parts are not. I'll be joined again by our incredible Real Talk panel, Shanique Edwards, Charlene Lex, Natasha Pennycook, Roxanne Francis, and myself, as we unpack identity, authenticity, pressure, and the realities many women navigate in professional spaces. You do not want to miss this one. So,
Hmm.
if tonight's conversation resonated with you and you're seeking support for yourself, your relationships, or your family, you're always welcome to connect with Nigel. You're welcome to connect with myself, or please find someone local to you. There are so many mental health providers that are safe spaces, so please reach out to someone. I'm your host, Felicia Fishoff. Thank you for spending this time with us on the Mental Health Hour. Again, right here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Until next time, take care of your mind, your body, and your heart.